Let's begin with a truth so shocking. It feels like a plot twist in a dystopian novel, the vast, green, thriving tropical forest. You see in every documentary, the one we collectively call the lungs of the earth is no longer functioning as it should. It is breathing its last breaths, and those serene, distant mountain peaks you see on the horizon aren't just a beautiful backdrop. They are silent witnesses to a collapse, and they hold the ancient records that prove it. This isn't about a single tree being cut down. This is about an entire, complex, billion-year-old communication network being severed in the span of a single human lifetime. Imagine for a moment that you could shrink down to the size of an ant and walk on the floor of a tropical rainforest. The first thing that would strike you isn't the sight, but the sound, or rather, the profound, echoing silence where there should be a symphony. The cacophony of insects, the calls of birds, the rustle of mammals. These are fading, replaced by the mechanical hum of human intrusion. But the real story, the silent war, is happening above you, in the canopy. This dense, layered roof of life is where 90% of the action in a rainforest occurs. It's a universe separate from the forest floor, a world of filtered light, sudden microclimates, and fierce competition for survival. Here, trees are not solitary beings. They are social, interconnected organisms linked by a subterranean internet of fungal threads called mycorrhizal networks. Through this wood wide web, they share nutrients, send chemical warning signals about invading pests, and even nurture their young, the seedlings struggling in the dim light below. This is a cooperative society, an ancient republic of plants that has maintained balance for millennia. But the arrival of those distant mountain peaks on the horizon signifies a critical change in elevation, temperature, and rainfall. These forests climbing the slopes are specialists adapted to precise conditions. They are the canaries in the coal mine for the entire lowland system below. As we push the climate into instability, the delicate mist that shrouds those mountain peaks, the cloud forests, is lifting. The fog interception that provides constant moisture is vanishing, pushing these specialized ecosystems higher and higher until they have nowhere left to go. But the lowland forest, the iconic jungle, is also suffocating. Rising temperatures increase the vapor pressure deficit, which is a scientific way of saying the air becomes a greedier thief, stealing more water from the leaves of every plant. The trees become stressed. They close their pores to conserve water, which means they absorb less carbon dioxide and they grow slower. They become more susceptible to disease and to fierce, hotter burning wildfires that not only kill trees but sterilize the very soil that houses that crucial fungal network. This is the silent war, not just deforestation, but the systemic degradation of a forest's very essence, its ability to function, regenerate, and protect itself. And we are all bystanders, watching a pillar of our planet's life support system fail in real time. But to truly understand the scale of this loss, we must look closer at the architects of this green world and discover why their disappearance is rewriting the rules of life on Earth. In the heart of this struggling ecosystem stands a silent guardian, a keystone species so pivotal that its disappearance would trigger an ecological avalanche of extinctions, the fig tree. To call it just a tree is a profound understatement. It is a forest within a forest, a bustling metropolis, and the ultimate lifeline. Its story begins with one of the most intricate partnerships in nature, a dance of timing and survival so precise it defies belief. Unlike most trees that flower seasonally, fig trees fruit year-round, producing hundreds of what we call figs, but these are not fruits in the simple sense. They are inverted flower clusters, sealed vessels known as ciconia. Inside each tiny, sealed globe, hundreds of tiny flowers bloom, trapped, with no way for pollination to occur. This is where the fig wasp, a creature often less than 2 millimeters long, enters the stage. A female wasp already laden with pollen from the fig where she was born, braves the narrow, tortuous passage into the zirconium, often losing her wings and antennae in the process. She lays her eggs in some of the flowers, pollinating the others in a single, final act of symbiosis. She then dies inside the tomb that is also a nursery. Weeks later, her offspring hatch. The wingless males mate with the winged females, tunnel out of the fig and die. The females then emerge, dusted with the fresh pollen of this fig, and fly off into the forest canopy, driven by an irresistible scent to find another fig tree of the exact same species, sometimes traveling for dozens of miles. This 80-million-year-old pact is the glue that holds the tropical forest together. Why? Because when other food sources vanish in lean seasons, fig trees are always in fruit. They are the emergency pantry for the entire animal kingdom. Birds, bats, monkeys, rodents, and even elephants flock to fig trees. They eat the fruit and disperse the seeds across vast distances, including up those steep slopes towards the distant mountain peaks, effectively planting the future forest. This constant food source sustains populations through droughts and famines. But here's the fragile link in this chain. Each of the over 750 fig species typically relies on its own unique species of fig wasp. They are a locked key and door. If the wasp vanishes, the tree cannot reproduce. Climate change, pesticides, and forest fragmentation sever this connection. A wasp searching for a specific fig tree scent cannot cross a 10-mile-wide cattle pasture. A rise in temperature of just a few degrees can desynchronize the life cycles of the wasp and the fig. No wasp, no pollination, no figs, no food in the lean season, no food. Mass starvation across hundreds of animal species. The collapse radiates outward. Furthermore, fig trees are hydrological powerhouses. Their extensive root systems act as natural anchors, preventing catastrophic landslides on those mountain slopes you see in the distance. They pump vast amounts of water from the soil and release it into the atmosphere through transpiration, literally creating their own rain clouds. This local water cycle is critical for sustaining the forest's humidity. Lose the figs, and you lose rainmakers, soil stabilizers, and the ultimate keystone food source. This isn't a hypothetical. In fragmented forests worldwide, scientists are recording empty forests, stands of trees that are standing but silent, because the animals that depended on figs have gone, and with them, the seed dispersal for countless other plants. The distant mountain peaks, therefore, are not just a boundary, they are a refuge and a record. As lowlands heat up, fig species and their wasps must migrate uphill to cooler climes. But what happens when they reach the top? The peaks represent a literal dead end, a final squeeze with nowhere left to run. The ancient, silent migration of ecosystems is now a frantic, compressed scramble against time, and the fig tree, the forest's great sustainer, is at the very center of this crisis. That humidity you feel in a tropical forest, the damp air that clings to your skin, is not passive atmosphere. It is a dynamic, flowing engine, a massive, invisible river suspended in the sky, and it is perhaps the most overlooked and critical contribution of forests like the one stretching towards those distant mountain peaks. This is the concept of flying rivers. Here's how it works, and it's a cycle of sublime elegance and profound importance. Every single one of those billions of leaves in the canopy is a microscopic pump. Through tiny pores called stomata, trees draw water from their roots and release it as vapor into the air, a process called transpiration. A single large tree can release hundreds of liters of water per day. Now multiply that by several 100 billion trees in the Amazon basin alone. The scale is almost incomprehensible. This moisture saturates the lower atmosphere. Winds, particularly the trade winds coming from the ocean, push this continental mass of water vapor inland. As it hits the foothills of mountain ranges like those very peaks in our tidal, the air is forced to rise. Rising air cools, the water vapor condenses, and it falls as rain, not just on the mountains, but deep into the continental interior, thousands of miles from the actual ocean. This is the miracle. The forest literally creates its own rainfall, watering itself and entire agricultural nations downstream. São Paulo, Brazil's megacity, depends on it. The soybean farms in Argentina depend on it. The Pantanal, the world's largest wetland, depends on it. This flying river is a planetary-scale weather machine. But when deforestation breaks the pump, the machine fails. Replace a deep-rooted, water-transpiring forest with shallow-rooted pasture grass or soy, and the amount of moisture pumped into the air drops catastrophically. The land surface becomes hotter and drier. The rain clouds simply don't form with the same reliability. The flying river dries up. This leads to a vicious feedback loop. Less rain causes drought stress and more fires in the remaining forest, which leads to more deforestation, which leads to even less rain. Scientists are now observing the worrying signs that parts of the Amazon, particularly in the south and east, are approaching a tipping point where the rainfall regime could irreversibly shift from a moist, closed canopy forest to a drier, savanna-like ecosystem. Those distant mountain peaks in our frame are critical players here. They are the water towers of the continent. The cloud forests that cling to their slopes are sponges capturing the moisture from the flying rivers and releasing it slowly, feeding the headwaters of countless rivers that flow down to the lowlands. But as global temperatures rise, the cloud base is lifting. The constant mist that bathes these high-altitude forests is rising up the slope, leaving the trees below in drier air. These specialized ecosystems are being squeezed towards the summits. The melting of glaciers on those peaks, another source of slow-release water, is accelerating. So, we are attacking the flying river from both ends, destroying its source in the lowland forests, and undermining its redistribution system in the mountains. The consequence is a continental-scale drought in the making. The distant peaks, then, cease to be just a symbol of beauty. They become a barometer, a measuring stick for the health of the entire hydrological cycle. Their snow caps are shrinking, their cloud belts are thinning, and the rivers that spring from their flanks are becoming more erratic, flooding violently in the rainy season and becoming pathetic trickles in the dry season. This isn't a local problem for hikers. It's a direct threat to water and food security for hundreds of millions of people. The tropical forest is not just a collection of trees, it is the heart of a circulatory system that sustains life across hemispheres. And we are in the process of giving it a heart attack. Beneath our feet, in the profound darkness of the forest floor, where less than 2% of sunlight penetrates, lies the true engine of abundance, death. This is the realm of decomposition, a process so efficient and rapid in the tropical heat and humidity that a leaf might be recycled in a matter of weeks, and a fallen tree trunk can vanish in a few years. This isn't decay in the morbid sense. It is frantic, vibrant recycling on a scale that makes our best human recycling programs look primitive. The soil of a healthy rainforest is surprisingly thin and nutrient poor. The incredible wealth of life is not stored in the dirt, it is stored in the living biomass, the trees, the vines, the animals themselves. When something dies, its nutrients must be captured and hauled back into the living system with breathtaking speed before they are washed away by the torrential rains. This is the job of an army of decomposers. Fungi are the master chemists here. They're vast, thread-like mycelial networks, which can span acres, secrete powerful enzymes that break down tough lignin and cellulose in wood, turning tree trunks into soggy, spongy matter. On their heels come the insects, termites, ants, and beetles that chew through the softened wood. But the real heavy lifters are often overlooked, the microbes and the detritivores. Mites, springtails, nematodes, and most importantly, earthworms process the organic matter further. In particular, the humble earthworm in a tropical forest is a different beast from its temperate cousin. Some species are gigantic, and their constant burrowing and consumption aerate the soil and mix nutrients with a proficiency no plow could ever match. This rapid decomposition creates a thin, rich humus layer that is instantly tapped into by the dense mat of fine tree roots and the mycorrhizal fungi they host. The fungi trade these freshly scavenged nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, with the tree roots in exchange for sugars from photosynthesis. It's a perfect, closed-loop economy where waste is an alien concept. Everything is a resource. Now let's connect this to the distant mountain peaks. The steep slopes are vulnerable. When trees are cleared, the anchoring root network dies. The army of decomposers, deprived of their constant food source of leaf litter and dead wood, diminishes. The next heavy rain now has no spongy humus to absorb it, no root mat to hold the soil. The result is catastrophic erosion. The thin, precious topsoil, the product of centuries of meticulous recycling, is sluiced down the mountainsides in muddy landslides, silting up rivers and smothering lowland forests. The nutrients are lost to the system forever, washed out to sea. The forest's ability to sustain itself is gutted. Furthermore, this decomposition engine is a major regulator of atmospheric carbon. In a stable forest, the carbon released by decomposition is roughly balanced by the carbon captured by new growth. But when a forest is felled and burned, not only is the stored carbon in the trees released instantly as CO2, but the soil itself, now exposed and heated, begins to oxidize and release its massive carbon stocks at an accelerated rate. The soil shifts from being a carbon sink to a carbon source. The distant peaks offer a stark visual of this. Deforestation on slopes creates ugly, bleeding scars of erosion that are visible from space raw, red gashes where the skin of the living world has been stripped away. This isn't just a loss of trees, it's a loss of the biological memory of the forest, the accumulated fertility of millennia, flushed down the river in a single season. The dark, quiet floor is the foundation of the entire towering structure above. Undermine this process of death and rebirth, and the entire system, from the canopy giants to the fig wasp, begins to totter. The silence that follows isn't peaceful. It's the silence of a factory whose machinery has ground to a permanent halt. So, we have journeyed from the silent crisis in the canopy, down through the interdependent world of the fig and the wasp, up into the flying rivers of the atmosphere, and deep into the recycling furnace of the forest floor. We've seen how the distant mountain peaks act as a recorder, a refuge, and a victim in this unfolding story. Now we arrive at the inescapable, personal question. Why does a tropical forest thousands of miles away matter to you? Sitting in your home today? The answer is written in the air you breathe, the climate you experience, the medicines in your cabinet, and the stability of your grocery bill. First, the climate. Stabilizer role is global. The carbon stored in these forests is a buffer against climate chaos. When it's released, it fuels the extreme weather events, the heat waves, the supercharged hurricanes, the bizarre winter storms that are already costing economies hundreds of billions of dollars annually and upending lives everywhere. Your insurance premiums, your tax dollars spent on disaster relief are directly linked to the health of those forests. Second, it's a pharmacy of unimaginable potential. Less than 1% of rainforest plants have been thoroughly studied for their medicinal properties, yet they have given us treatments for leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, malaria, and glaucoma. The next breakthrough for cancer, or Alzheimer's, or a future pandemic virus could be encoded in the genetics of a plant, a fungus, or a microbe in that soil right now. Burning a rainforest is like burning a library of unread books before we've even learned their titles. Third, it's about biological security. The diversity of life acts as a buffer against the spread of disease. In simplified, degraded ecosystems, the chances of a pathogen jumping from an animal to a human, a zoonotic spillover like COVID-19, increase dramatically. Preserving complex, intact forests is a direct investment in global health security. Finally, it's about ethics and legacy. These are the oldest, most complex expressions of life on this planet. They have a right to exist beyond their utility to us. They inspire awe, art, and a sense of connection to a world greater than ourselves. The sight of a tropical forest with distant mountain peaks touches something primordial in us, a sense of mystery, scale, and beauty. To reduce it all to board feet of lumber and acres of pasture is a failure of imagination and a theft from every future generation. So, what can you do? The problem feels monolithic, but the pathways for action are clearer than ever. It starts with informed consumption. Be aware of the commodities that drop. Deforestation, beef, soy, often used as animal feed, palm oil, and timber. You don't need to become a radical ascetic. You can seek out brands committed to deforestation-free supply chains, reduce food waste, a major driver of land use, and embrace a diet with less meat. Support, even in a small way, indigenous and local communities who are on the front lines of forest protection. Often, they are the most effective stewards of their ancestral lands. Use your voice on social media to support companies and policies that prioritize sustainability. But most importantly, stay informed. Don't let the complexity paralyze you. Understand, as we have today, that a forest is not a collection of trees. It is an ancient living network, a communication system, a water factory, a pharmacy, a climate regulator, and a library of life's genius. The distant mountain peaks in that beautiful scene are not just decoration. They are a warning, a measure, and a reminder. They remind us that everything in nature is connected in a delicate, awe-inspiring balance. The balance is now in our hands. The story of the tropical forest is not a eulogy yet. It is a call to action written in every leaf, every cloud, every thread of fungus in the soil. It is a call to see the world not as a collection of resources to be used, but as a community to which we belong. This is where you make the choice. This knowledge is power, but only if you act on it. I've given you the deep, original data and the connections. Now I'm asking you to take 3 concrete steps. First, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. We will continue to break down complex planetary issues like this, give you the tools to understand and speak about them with authority. Second, share this specific video with at least one person today. Start a conversation. Say, I watched this incredible breakdown of why rainforests matter, and it changed my perspective. You need to see it. Third, go to the comments and tell me one thing you will change, one new perspective you gained, or one question you still have after watching this 5,000-word journey. Your engagement is what transforms this from a monologue into a movement. The forest, with its distant, watching mountain peaks, is waiting to see what we do next. The next chapter is yours to write. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for caring.